million now known variants. What was special about this variant is that there were many differences according to the computer alignment process for this variant that were different in the spike protein region of the so-called virus. In other words, that led them to conclude that this person had a variant of SARS-CoV-2. Why did they know it was SARS-CoV-2? Because the person had COVID. How did they know they had COVID? Because they said so. So the assumption was they had COVID, therefore they have SARS-CoV-2. The computer spits out a whole genome, which has many different mutations, they say, or changes in the spike protein segment. So therefore, this leads to the conclusion that this new variant had many changes in the spike protein, and therefore it became a variant of concern. They had no information about the existence of this new particle. They had no information about how dangerous this new imaginary particle is. They had no information about the transmission of this new imaginary particle, just that the sequence in the spike protein was different than what they usually see. So that's what they reported. And now comes the key element. Because there were so many differences in the spike protein, which is one of the three primers that is being used in the PCR test, this led them to the conclusion that this new variant is only going to be positive for two of the three primer sequences, not all three, as has been the case up till now. This part is so important that I'm going to say it again. In order to diagnose a positive PCR test, they have three different primers, and they all have to anneal or match to something, a sequence in the sample from the person. If there's two matches, that's a negative test. But because one of the matches is a sequence in the spike protein, which in this new variant is different, this led to the conclusion that that primer sequence won't match to the sample of the patient. And so only two of the three primers are positive. This led to the conclusion that then we can say a positive test for the Omicron variant only needs two of the three, and if the spike protein sequence primer is negative, that's a positive test for the Omicron variant. I'm not sure if everybody got that, so let me try that again. Before the Omicron, you had to have three sets of primers that were positive. Because one of the primers has been changed, that one's off the table. So now if you have two primers that are positive, then it's a positive test, whereas previously it would be a negative test because this one has mutated and so it doesn't match with the primer sequences. What inevitably happens then is you're going to see an incredible explosion of positive tests simply because they changed the number of primers from 3 to 2 that have to be positive. It's like saying, let me try to think of an analogy. In order to say you're a millionaire, you have to have $1 million. And so let's count how many millionaires there are in Florida. There's 100. Now we change the definition of what it means to be a millionaire. You only have to have $500,000. Wow. Suddenly we have twice as many millionaires in Florida. That must mean that the Biden economic program or the DeSantis economic program is working, because there's twice as many millionaires. Excuse me, wait a minute. Didn't you just say you changed the definition from 5 million to 500,000? Yeah, but that's because I don't know why that's because. That's because we have new financial information that says you can be a millionaire with only having $500,000. And since the spike protein, we know it's part of SARS-CoV-2 because we say so. And we know the guy had, or the woman had COVID because we say so. Therefore, they must have had COVID. The test was negative, and that means this variant has a negative test. And oh my God, it's spreading all over the world because everybody now with who's got 500,000 is suddenly called a millionaire. That's nuts. This is simply a way to fuel the next stage of this pandemic. And that's all there is to it. Nobody has ever correlated this with any virus, this genome with a particle. There is no correlation, genome with a particle. Never. Nobody found the particle. Nobody found the variation of the particle. Nobody correlated this genome with any clinical outcome. They don't know whether they get sick. They don't know whether it's transmitted. They don't know what's going to happen to it. They say that right on their website, on the World Health Organization. They just know it's spreading. And the reason is because they changed the definition of the test for the reasons that I just said. And that will fuel more positives and all the rest of it. So there you go.